September 13th, 2017. Caleb packed a few of his dad's guns into a large duffel bag in his coat pockets, mainly his AR-15 and a handgun. He loaded his gear onto the school bus with his classmates none the wiser as to what he was planning. Even after arriving at school, he carried this bag around with him for a few hours. Donning a long, dark coat and sunglasses reminiscent of the Columbine shooters, Eric and Dylan, Caleb bided his time until he felt that he was ready. That time came shortly after 10 a.m. Caleb, carrying his duffel bag, walked up to the second floor of Freeman High School. He half-heartedly greeted a few other students as they passed by before placing his... It isn't often that a kid who attacks his fellow students at school lives to tell the tale. It's even less often that they were a YouTuber whose content pointed towards some sort of gun violence coming in the future. This odd case is one of such stories. It isn't all too often that a mass shooter lives to tell their story, and it's even less often that a school shooter lives to tell the tale. Today we have one of those rare cases, and to make it even more unusual, the kid was a YouTuber who posted a lot online leading up to the incident. Freeman High School is a public school located about 19 miles from Spokane, Washington. It's a fairly small town, with the elementary, middle, and high schools located within the same small area. The high school itself contained fairly few students as well, usually only around 300 kids in total. 15-year-old Caleb Sharpe was one of these students. Caleb was called weird by the other students at school. However, it wasn't really the scary kind of weird, as he was also described as being pretty funny. He liked making YouTube videos and was a pretty big fan of Breaking Bad. While he didn't seem to have too many good friends outside of school, he would often talk to people in class and in the hallways, hanging out with friends on occasion. It doesn't seem that he was at all disliked. However, it wasn't too long before this all took a drastic turn for the worst. Caleb had gotten very into reading about school shooters and watching documentaries about them. He wasn't at all shy about this newfound fascination, often sending screenshots and clips from these videos to his friends over Snapchat, usually kind of creeping them out in the process. On his YouTube channel, he started using BB guns and bad CG effects to act out similar scenes in his own backyard. In the YouTube videos where Caleb appears to be shooting BB guns with shoddy computer-generated muzzle flashes overlaid, he played out a lot of different scenarios with his friends. In one, he sits in a lawn chair on his deck before shooting his friend. He then goes inside to play a video game, saying that things are much quieter now at least. In another video, he and his friend act out a shootout. Caleb is seen firing from the side of his garage while one of his friends ducks down in a hot tub and fires back. Caleb then shoots the friend, with the friend flailing around and shouting "oh crap" before collapsing. There was another video in which Caleb and a friend go on an adventure to kill a drug dealer, this time brandishing a mixture of what appears to be both fake and real guns. It got to the point where Caleb started writing notes for his friends in class, notes that said he was planning on doing something, in his own words, stupid. Nobody had any idea what he actually meant or if he was even being serious. One of these friends passed the note on to a school counselor, but it seems that nothing was ever really done about it. On social media, mainly on Instagram where Caleb went by Walrus Meat, he started to make more vague and cryptic posts about depression and anxiety. Caleb went on to ask another friend to buy some supplies for him, mainly gasoline, fuses, and other forms of fuel. This friend, concerned, asked him why he needed these things. Caleb only responded with, "science experiment." This friend ignored the request and simply refused to buy anything for him. Caleb bragged to another one of his friends that he owned multiple different weapons, mainly different handguns, saying that his dad had bought them for him. He also bragged about making improvised explosive devices out of chemicals. While it doesn't seem to be the case that Caleb's father actually bought him those guns, and there wasn't any evidence that he was actually making explosives, it was true that he did know the combination to his father's gun safe. While Caleb had been gradually getting a little bit more and more creepy towards his friends, no one really knew how truly bad it was behind the scenes. Caleb was planning something big. While all the people around him never particularly felt that Caleb was being bullied, he felt that he was. Whether something actually was happening just out of sight or whether he was simply delusional is unknown, but he felt that he wanted to get back at these bullies somehow. When researching school shootings, he felt like he had found his answer, but he still wasn't sure whether or not he should actually go through with it. Like Randy Stair before him, he decided to flip a coin to see whether or not he should carry out an attack. Heads, he doesn't. Tails, he does. He pulled out a coin and tossed it into the air. It fell to the ground as he walked over to see his fate. It was tails. September 13th, 2017. Caleb packed a few of his dad's guns into a large duffel bag in his coat pockets, mainly his AR-15 and a handgun. He loaded his gear onto the school bus with his classmates none the wiser as to what he was planning. Even after arriving at school, he carried this bag around with him for a few hours. Donning a long, dark coat and sunglasses reminiscent of the Columbine shooters, Eric and Dylan, Caleb bided his time until he felt that he was ready. That time came shortly after 10 a.m. Caleb, carrying his duffel bag, walked up to the second floor of Freeman High School. He half-heartedly greeted a few other students as they passed by before placing his bag onto the ground. He began to rummage through the bag as other students walked past him. People, seeing his outfit and his large bag, began to joke around, asking him if he had a gun in there. He responded simply, "Actually I do," before they walked off, assuming it was all a joke. After a minute or two, he pulled out the AR-15 and quickly pulled it up, aiming down the sights as he quickly walked down the hallway and toward some of the students. To his surprise, though, it wouldn't fire. He had jammed the gun so badly that it would have taken quite a bit of time to fix it. Given that the gun wouldn't operate and that Caleb seemed confused, the other students around him seemed to have assumed that it was only a toy and that Caleb was pulling a dumb prank on them. They glanced back towards him as they continued to walk down the halls. Some of the other students, though, feeling that this was legit, ran for cover. One student didn't, however. This was a student named Sam Strahan, a boy who was said to have known Caleb and to have been very decent friends with him. Some other students have said that the two would hang out often together. This might be the reason why Sam could see what Caleb was really up to. From what we can gather from statements made by students who were in the hall at the time, Sam approached Caleb and tried to defuse the situation. One student said that Sam approached him while saying, "This isn't what you want to do." Another student further elaborated, saying that Sam told him, "I always knew you were going to shoot up the school, and you know that this is going to get you in trouble." Likely angered by these statements, Caleb gave up on trying to unjam the rifle. Instead, he pulled his backup pistol out of his coat pocket and shot Sam in the stomach. When Sam bent over in pain, Corey raised the gun one more time and shot him point blank in the face. This is where the shooting truly began, as, right after this, the school would collapse into pure chaos. Caleb gave up on the rifle entirely, instead firing the handgun down the hallways. Bullets were hitting the walls, the ceilings, and students as panic broke out in the hallway. While firing down the hallway, Caleb hit 3 girls, Emma Nees, Jordan Goldsmith, and Gracie Jensen. One student who hid in a nearby storage room with a friend described the scene, saying, "I heard this really loud noise. I thought someone had dropped something super heavy. Then I heard 2 or 3 more shots. That's when I realized it was a gunshot. We heard a girl screaming out in the hallway. I was shaking the whole time. It was terrifying." Another witness, a 14-year-old girl, said, "I was putting my backpack away and I heard a loud pop and I turned around. He was walking around. He had his pistol. His face was completely passive. He shot someone in the head. I crouched down in the hall. I looked up and a girl screamed, 'Help me, help me, help me.' The hall was empty. She was shot in the back. I looked to my right and there was a boy and he was shot in the head." Another student, a 15-year-old boy, hid with a group of other kids in a nearby math classroom after the first shots were fired. At first, he thought he had heard some balloons popping. After, he said, "Then more shots followed, so I hit the deck. I dove underneath the desk. When people came in, I noticed one of them had blood on them. That was Emma Nees. She was hit in the lower abdomen. She didn't even notice it for a second. She said it only grazed her." After more students ran into the room, the teacher, Marty Jessett, attempted to close the door and the blinds on the windows. In the process, he noticed that Emma had been a lot more than grazed by the bullet. She had an entrance wound on one side and an exit wound on the other. With limited supplies on hand, he grabbed some athletic tape and applied it to the wounds for the time being. It was then that the school custodian approached Caleb, ordering him to get down on the ground. Surprisingly, Caleb did so. He surrendered completely, lying down on the ground where he stood. Another employee, the school resource officer, ran straight towards the sounds of the gunfire to hopefully subdue the shooter as well. He got there right as the janitor confronted Caleb, helping to restrain the boy until the police arrived. All in all, the shooting had only lasted about 1 minute after the initial shot was fired. Every school in the area quickly went into lockdown, unsure of the extent of the attack that was taking place. Emergency crews made their way into the school, finding the 3 wounded girls. When they came into the room to assist with M&Es, the other students were led out of the school.
What does your video sound like? Go to artlist.io and get the best music and sound effects for your videos.
The previous student who hid in the math room saw Sam Strahan's body on the way out. He said, "I see things happen on national news. Then it just happened a couple hours ago. That's insane." He was thrown aback, knowing that Caleb and Sam were friends. He added, "I was not that close with Sam, but I thought they hung out like every weekend." A teacher named John Hayes rushed out into the hallway and attempted to apply pressure to Sam's head wound, but it was far too late to save him. The 3 wounded girls were all rushed to the hospital. All 3 were in stable condition, but were going to need surgery for their wounds. While rumors went wild immediately after the shooting, mainly around the number of victims, one thing was consistent among them, that Sam Strahan had been a hero for trying to stop Caleb. Sam had actually just dealt with the death of his own father a few months prior in an accident. Even so, he tried to remain positive in front of others, making jokes in the same way that he always had. He had stopped going out, though, and started keeping to himself. Now his family had lost yet another. A friend of Sam's sister told the media, "Watching him grow up to be such a positive and happy spirit to others around him was inspiring. Sam was a brother who loved and cared for his older sister and always watched out for his mother." Hundreds of people gathered outside of a few local churches and schools to hold vigils in support of the victims and the survivors later that night. A Washington state trooper who was called out to the scene called that day the worst day of his entire career. The school had practiced lockdown drills only a few days prior. He never could have assumed that they would need to apply those exercises so shortly after, if ever. The police had confirmed that Caleb had fully intended to do a lot more damage with the AR-15, but he had jammed the gun very badly. They said that Sam was heroic in his actions, saying that he likely prevented more students from being shot by preventing Caleb from unjamming the rifle. The governor of Washington, Jay Inslee, issued a statement very shortly after the shooting before many of the facts were known. He said, "As Spokane County officials continue their investigation to get the answers to the questions so many of us have during these unthinkable tragedies, the Washington State Patrol and all state agencies will do whatever we can to help provide support and comfort in the days and weeks to come. These are senseless and tragic events that really don't need to happen, and I don't understand them. I don't think anybody can make any sense out of this. But we need to figure out what's gone wrong with our society that our children decide they need to take weapons to deal with the issues they're facing." In one of the very rare occasions where a school shooter survives their own attack, Corey was taken into police custody and put into a juvenile detention center. While the police themselves couldn't really reveal any details about his identity due to his young age, there wasn't really any need. Numerous students and teachers who were there that day identified Caleb Sharpe as the killer. The police were able to find a short document, basically a manifesto, in Caleb's room. Inside of a binder in his dresser was a written list of his father's guns and ammo. In another drawer was a school yearbook. Here, Caleb revealed the extent of his plans fully. He had marked out numerous students' faces with an X, signifying that they were to be targets during his rampage. The police were unable to confirm or deny whether or not any of the students shot had their faces crossed out in the book. After the police found the manifestos and conducted interviews with more than 100 people related to the case, they began to see Caleb's motive. They announced, vaguely, "It sounds like a case of bullying type of situation." It was time for Caleb's own interrogation, and he was more than willing to tell his tale. He told them that he had gotten the weapon from his father's gun safe. He said that he had thoughts of ending his own life and had been talking to the school counselor about it. He said that he was bullied, adding that Sam had picked on him specifically. This went against statements made by other students saying that they were friends who hung out together. So Caleb backtracked a little and said that he hadn't set out to target Sam specifically that day. In fact, he said that nobody he shot that day was an intended target. He said, "I'd come to the school to teach everyone a lesson about what happens when you bully others." While his charges had been up in the air before his interrogation, they were decided upon shortly after. He was hit with a charge of premeditated murder as well as 51 counts of assault for every student that was in the vicinity of the gunfire that day. Before his trial ever even came about, Caleb pled guilty to a number of the charges against him. He agreed to plead guilty to premeditated murder, 3 counts of attempted murder, and second-degree assault. When detectives asked him during the hearing if he felt remorse for the attack, he simply responded with no. A few months after, Caleb and his legal team decided to change his plea to guilty by reason of insanity. However, the judge denied this change, saying that it was a little too late for that. Caleb's trial would come to be delayed again and again. It got even worse when COVID lockdowns began, making the public unsure if Caleb would ever actually see some sort of sentencing for what he had done. Luckily, that trial eventually did come about in 2022. The state prosecutors showed the security camera footage from that day in the school to the courts. While most of that has never been leaked, the judge did show a portion of it to the public, mainly everything leading up to the first shots actually being fired. Various psychologists employed by both the defense and the prosecution were called in to give their opinions on Caleb's mental state. While none of them could come to a consensus on how bad his mental illness was leading up to the shooting, or if he even had any at all, they all agreed that he was at low risk to reoffend. Violently, at least. Sam Strahan's mom, Amy, addressed the court during the trial. She described Caleb as an evil, hateful human being, and urged the judge to give him the maximum sentence allowed by law. The judge did just that. He sentenced Caleb to 40 years to life in prison. With credit for the 5 years served in detention by this point, Caleb was all set to be in prison for the next 35 years at the least, leaving him eligible for parole when he was 55 years old. While many people following the case were reasonably happy with this outcome, things wouldn't be so simple after all. 2 years later, in 2024, Caleb and his legal team decided to challenge his sentence. In April, they cited an old Washington state law that stated that the maximum sentence someone could receive for a crime they committed before the age of 17 would be 25 years to life. They cited another law that said firearm enhancements to charges could not apply to anyone under the age of 16 either. Caleb said that his 40-year-to-life sentence was unconstitutional because it was effectively a life sentence, in his words. He said that his confession to the police after his arrest was involuntary, implying that they had coerced it out of him. However, Caleb wouldn't have any luck with this claim as he had full opportunity to challenge this confession years ago but waived the right when he himself decided to plead guilty. At that point, the contents of his original confession didn't matter as he had confessed again. The school district was very unhappy to hear about all of this. The superintendent, Randy Russell, issued a statement saying, "The Freeman School District is disappointed in today's announcement that the Washington State Court of Appeals has ordered the resentencing of Caleb Sharpe. It's heartbreaking that the Freeman students, staff, families, and community will be exposed to yet another conversation about the situation. We will continue providing support and services to Freeman students, staff, and families as we navigate our continuing road of recovery. Going back to court for this case once again was difficult for the whole community, especially the survivors. Unfortunately, the laws that Caleb's team cited were legitimate. The judge was left with no choice but to amend his sentence to 25 years to life in prison. That day, Amy Strahan was the only witness who chose to make a statement. She said, "The wounds from that day remain deeply painful. This, coming here and doing this again, very painful. I'm here for Sam, and I will always show up for him regardless of how much this hurts me. But it bears repeating that this nightmare will never be over. There are long-standing wounds that won't heal because they simply can't." Still showing absolutely no remorse, Caleb accepted his resentencing of 25 years to life. At the end of that 25 years, he will be eligible for parole, and there's actually a pretty good chance that he will be freed. After all of his psychologists have agreed that he has a very low chance of reoffending. If that does happen, it will be in the year 2042. The victims and witnesses to Caleb's attack were less than friendly to him on social media. Before his accounts were finally deleted, he had racked up, let's just say, a lot of criticism. Once again, thank you for watching my video. If you found it interesting, please give it a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. If you want, I've still got that podcast going with a...
And, you know, it's pretty fucked up if you really think about it. So, one of the biggest fears is that we're gonna go right back here. Why in the flying fuck that no one noticed this guy pulling out a gun. And more likely, people joked about it. See, now, if it was my black ass, I wouldn't have been out of here. I wouldn't have been booking it like it was a Call of Duty sprint animation or some shit. I would not be sitting around. As soon as I see the gun, I'm screaming for my life. And if I was at that school, people will probably think I'm, a yellow bus kid, just doing yellow bus stuff. And you see, the fact that no one noticed he was bringing out a gun, it was too big, bro. Judging by the bag size, that's too big. There's no instruments coming out of that thing. The only instrument that's coming out of that thing is a gun. And the fact that no one didn't even notice it kind of frightens me of the people or the students' IQ. You're so interested in a joke. It's like a capybara. You don't realize the threat in front of you until it's too late. If I had seen this gun, and if I had seen his pack, I would have ran. Even though if I didn't have any knowledge of what school shooters do, I would have been like, I would have looked at it, and then realized, wait, hold on a moment. Oh, hell no. I would have ran out. I would have booked it. Teachers would have told me to come back inside. Unfortunately, by the time that happens, this piece of shit is already shooting up the whole school. See, that's what bothers me. That bothers me a lot. The fact that people didn't notice him pulling out the gun is crazy to me. And they were making jokes about it. Jesus Christ, bro. Now, we're gonna go to another part where this guy was supposed to be the hero. I thank this kid for his service and trying to protect all the innocent lives. However, of course, like they say, they're always friends. They were never friends. Guys and girls, they were never friends. We already know what's going on here. Like, you guys can't keep proclaiming they're friends. Clearly, this kid just wanted to do it for blood. And he did it. But regardless of this guy bullying him, or let's say allegedly bullying him, nothing went right. And it's just like, you really think about this, that people say that they were friends, that means people were in on the act. You can't say they were friends. Never say that they were friends. You know better than that. But they did it instinctually, which is disappointing. And knowing this very well is a possible case of bullying, because many of the bullies' sympathizers usually would end up doing the most fucked up shit by proclaiming they were friends and they hung out together. This is a normal Gen Z thing, where proclaiming people are friends when they are not friends, and knowing damn well they're not, but going along with the act, making it look like they were, is a smarter idea. However, look how that turned out, unfortunately. This is quite disappointing, because guess what? He pulled up, and of course, it's always a stupid dad that's irresponsible as hell, not thinking their kid would go through their gun stock, and then the kid did. It's always the stupid, naive fathers. I feel like the father should also be held responsible for this. Because if you clearly don't understand your son is mentally unwell, and he's doing what a 2010 school shooter would have done, it's not okay. You're disregarding the fact that your son was mentally ill and you actually knew ahead of time he was. I know for a fact this dad was a part of it. He's seen signs. He's seen him, you know, acting very funny, very uncomfortable, very weird. Especially if he's obsessing over school shooters. It always starts with gore too. School shooters and gore, it always starts there. That's the biggest red flag. If you can't understand that, then maybe you just need to get a psychological evaluation. Because that's all it takes, is to be very interested in dark, decrepit shit and think that it's a-okay and be like, oh, you know, he's just joking, it's just dark humor. It's not like he actually really likes it. Like, come on, bro. This dude likes it. That's why he kept researching things up. Like, the fact that people don't even understand that, and I feel like people quote-unquote say they do, but I'm starting to feel like they don't. Like, I feel like people don't realize that. They just tell themselves in their head that their friend is mentally well, and their friend doesn't watch content like that. Like, fuck, bro. I swear on me, bro. People are so stupid. Like, how are you not gonna fucking realize that? That just pisses me off. And then he has the nerve to appeal for court and say he did absolutely nothing wrong. Prime problem right there. Always proclaiming they did nothing absolutely wrong. You did everything wrong. And I hope he goes back to jail. And the fact that they almost got him at 55 years old, that would have been good. That would have been so good. But now he's going to be out at 40 something, which is bullshit. He doesn't deserve that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't deserve that. But of course, thugs like this will always be able to get out because they always got some sort of magical backup. Magical fucking backup and someone to defend them. I don't even understand that. Anyways, guys and girls, if you see someone unpacking a bag, and if you're a minor at school, clearly run for your life. Don't be stupid and joke around and be like, oh, you're pulling out a bag? Yeah, sure, I do have a gun. If you hear that, maybe you should just dip out. How about that? Just so stupid.
Hi, I'm Lucy Christian. I am the voice of Otako Uraraka, and you should subscribe to Neusxanity's channel. Peace out!